Hey everyone, it's great to be back with you. And today, I've got a book that I simply couldn't wait to tell you about. It's called Smarter, Faster, Better: The Secrets of Productivity in Life and Business by Charles Duff. Sometimes you pick up a book hoping for a few quick tips, but this one completely reshaped how I think about getting things done. It's a work of nonfiction, but honestly, it reads like a collection of incredible stories. Duff, who is a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative reporter, dives deep into the science of productivity. But instead of giving you dry academic theory, he brings it to life through captivating real-world examples, from airline pilots facing disaster to the creative chaos of Saturday Night Live. His main argument: productivity isn't just about working harder or putting in more hours. It's fundamentally about making certain choices in certain ways: how we see ourselves, the stories we tell, the goals we set, and the cultures we build. Let's start with something we all grapple with: motivation. Have you ever felt that nagging feeling of needing to do something important but just not doing it? Duff explores this through some really fascinating cases, like the story of Robert, an accomplished businessman who suddenly loses all get up and go after a trip to Bolivia. Doctors found slight brain damage in his striatum, a part of the brain crucial for translating decisions into action and regulating moods. What was missing for Robert wasn't intelligence or awareness, but a total absence of drive. This ties into experiments by neurologist Mauricio Delgado, who found that people's brains lit up with anticipation and excitement only when they felt they had control over their choices. When the computer made the choice, their strata went silent, as if uninterested. So, if you want to motivate yourself, the core idea is to transform a chore into a choice. Duff himself shares how he used this to tackle the daily torture of replying to emails. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by a flood of messages, he started framing each reply as an affirmation of his control. For example, by typing, "I would like to leave on Tuesday and be back in New York by Thursday night," instead of just confirming his availability. This small act of choosing, even in a mundane task, amplifies his sense of control. The book also highlights that motivation flourishes when we link small tasks to our larger values and goals. Think of it this way: asking yourself why you're doing something, why that email, why that workout, connects the immediate action to a bigger, more emotionally rewarding purpose you believe in. This is beautifully illustrated by the Marine Corps, which turns directionless teenagers into highly motivated Marines by constantly forcing them to make decisions and take control, especially during the grueling crucible exercise. They are praised for actions that are difficult, reinforcing their belief in their own capabilities and activating their internal locus of control. Even in nursing homes, seniors who rebelled against rigid schedules and asserted control over small choices, like refusing certain food, actually lived longer and reported higher happiness. It's all about that feeling of being in charge of your own life. Now, moving beyond individual motivation, let's talk about teams. Google, with all its data and smart people, struggled to figure out why some teams excelled while others didn't. Their massive project, Aristotle, initially found no correlation between a team's composition, the who, and its success. The breakthrough came when they focused on group norms, the unwritten rules of behavior. And the most crucial norm: psychological safety. This is a sense of trust and respect where everyone feels safe to speak up, take risks, and be honest without fear of embarrassment or punishment. The research found two key behaviors in highly effective teams: everyone spoke in roughly the same proportion, and members showed high social sensitivity, meaning they were good at intuiting how others felt. The classic example here is the original cast of Saturday Night Live. You might think they were a tight-knit, harmonious group, but Duff reveals they were incredibly competitive, argumentative, and sometimes downright mean. Yet they were incredibly productive. Why? Because Lorne Michaels, the executive producer, fostered psychological safety. He made sure everyone had a voice and encouraged social sensitivity, even when people were clashing. He famously wanted a bunch of eyes on his team, not just team without an eye. They knew they could pitch crazy ideas, even if they were shot down, because the underlying norm was one of mutual support and a willingness to take risks. This is why, if given a choice between a polite, efficient Team A and a messier, more informal Team B, where people interrupt but are attuned to each other, You should choose Team B for collective intelligence. Next up is focus, which can be incredibly elusive in our data-saturated world. The book uses the tragic example of Air France Flight 447, which crashed into the Atlantic because the pilots, overwhelmed by alarms and automation, entered a cognitive tunnel. Instead of thinking, they reacted, fixating on the most obvious but incorrect stimuli. In contrast, the story of Canada's Flight 32, where Captain Richard Champion de Crespigny safely landed a severely damaged Airbus at 380, highlights the power of mental models. Before every flight, de Crespigny would drill his crew by asking them to envision emergency scenarios and mentally running through what-if exercises. When disaster struck, with 21 of 22 systems failing, he forced himself to reframe the situation by imagining the advanced Airbus as a simple Cessna. This allowed him to simplify the problem and direct his attention to what truly mattered, saving 440 lives. The key here is to constantly tell ourselves stories and create mental pictures of what's going on around us, anticipating what's next. This keeps our mental spotlight from dimming and helps us make decisions rather than just react. And speaking of setting goals, this book offers a fantastic framework that revolutionized how I think about my own ambitions. It's about combining two types of goals, SMART goals and stretch goals. You've probably heard of SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. They're great for making vague aspirations concrete and have been shown to significantly improve performance, as seen in an experiment with typists at a corporation. But the book also shows the downside if you only focus on SMART goals. General Electric, a company famous for its SMART goal system, found some divisions floundering because employees were setting trivial, easy-to-achieve SMART goals that didn't drive real progress. They were focused on inconsequential goals rather than ambitious plans. This is where stretch goals come in, inspired by the development of Japan's bullet train, which pushed engineers beyond what seemed realistic. CEO Jack Welch introduced audacious, seemingly impossible targets. For example, telling a jet engine division to cut defects by 7/2, far beyond their initial 25 target. This forced them to fundamentally rethink their entire process: hiring, training, workflow, leading to radical innovations and massive improvements no SMART goal alone would have achieved. The trick, Duff explains, is that while stretch goals spark innovation and break complacency, they can also cause panic, so they need to be paired with the disciplined, step-by-step approach of SMART goals. You set a grand, almost impossible vision stretch, and then you break it down into realistic, short-term, measurable steps. SMART. This combination keeps your eyes on the big prize while giving you a clear path forward. The Israeli intelligence failure leading up to the Yom Kippur War serves as a stark warning about the dangers of extreme need for cognitive closure. Their obsession with achieving certainty and avoiding unnecessary alarms led them to ignore mounting evidence of an impending attack. They had clear goals, but their intolerance for ambiguity blinded them. When it comes to managing others, the book highlights the power of decentralized decision-making and a culture of trust. The BI, notoriously bogged down by bureaucracy and outdated systems, transformed its productivity by adopting lean manufacturing and agile programming principles. Inspired by Toyota's NUMMI plant, at NUMMI, workers on the assembly line were empowered to pull the engine cord to stop the entire production line if they spotted a defect, rather than just letting it pass. This pushed decision-making to the lowest possible level, giving workers the authority to solve problems directly and fostering a sense of ownership and responsibility. Similarly, the BI, under Chad Fulham, revamped its Sentinel software project by empowering junior engineers and agents to make critical choices and experiment, leading to rapid innovation and success. The key message here is that when employees are trusted and empowered to make decisions and follow their instincts, organizations gain access to a vast pool of expertise they would otherwise miss. This builds a commitment culture where people are devoted to each other and the shared mission. This also ties into decision-making itself. How do we make better choices, especially when the future is uncertain? Annie Duke, a champion poker player, offers incredible insights. She learned to see a losing hand not as a loss but as an experiment, a way to gather information about her opponents. The core idea is probabilistical thinking, envisioning the future not as one predetermined outcome, but as a multitude of possibilities with varying likelihoods. Instead of saying it's likely I'll go to Hawaii, you learn to quantify it. There's a 51 chance versus a 90 chance. This comfort with doubt and the ability to combine contradictory futures into a single, more accurate prediction is crucial. The Good Judgment Project, which trained regular people in probabilistical thinking, significantly increased their forecasting accuracy for geopolitical events. A crucial point here is to actively seek out information on failures, not just successes. Our natural optimism and exposure to mostly successful stories like in news can bias our assumptions. To make truly good predictions, we need to expose ourselves to a full spectrum of experiences, including what went wrong. When it comes to innovation, Duff explores how Disney's Frozen was saved from creative disaster by fostering a specific kind of environment. The answer isn't a magical formula, but creating conditions for creativity to flourish. This often involves mixing old ideas in new ways, a concept called idea brokering. Jerome Robbins, the choreographer for West Side Story, pushed his collaborators to combine classical ballet with modern jazz and drama, drawing on their personal experiences and emotions to create something entirely new. The key is to be sensitive to your own experiences, how things make you think and feel, because that's how you distinguish true insights from cliches. What's also fascinating is the concept of creative desperation. The stress and anxiety that come with a creative project aren't signs of failure, but rather a condition that makes us flexible enough to see bold ideas in new ways, to push for breakthroughs. And once you have a breakthrough, be willing to critique and even kill your darlings by introducing slight disturbances like changing power dynamics to prevent complacency and keep the creative process flowing. Finally, for absorbing data and truly turning information into knowledge, the book introduces the idea of disfluency. In Cincinnati's public schools, despite having sophisticated online dashboards for student data, teachers weren't using the information effectively. The turnaround came when they were forced to physically interact with the data, transcribing test scores onto index cards, drawing graphs by hand, and running impromptu experiments in data rooms. This made the data harder to process at first, but stickier once it was really understood. It's about performing some kind of operation on the information, forcing your brain to engage with it, rather than passively receiving it. Think about how much more you learn when you explain a concept to someone else, or when you write notes by hand instead of typing them. This active engagement, forcing yourself to do something with the data, helps you build the mental scaffolds and folders that are essential for deep learning and understanding. So what's the big takeaway from Smarter, Faster, Better? It's that productivity isn't a fixed trait, it's a skill you can learn and hone. It's about consciously choosing to engage with the world in smarter ways. It's about understanding that motivation comes from control and meaning, that teams thrive on psychological safety, that focus is built through mental models, and that goals meet both big dreams and concrete plans. It's about empowering others, making decisions by forecasting multiple futures, finding innovation by mixing old ideas with personal experience, and deeply absorbing data by forcing yourself to interact with it. If you're looking to feel more in control of your work and your life, to achieve more with less stress, or to simply understand how some people seem to get so much done, this book is a must-read. It gives you practical insights and truly impactful stories that will make you look at your daily choices in a whole new light. I promise, you'll finish it feeling like you have a clear roadmap to becoming smarter, faster, and better at everything you do.